Everything has consciousness. Everything in the world, everything in existence, it has consciousness. It's not only the animals or humans or plants. Everything. A car, a house, a business, even inanimate objects or things, or, constructions, or, businesses that are created and that are kind of like an abstract thing, they have consciousness and they're their own living entity. The earth is part of this too. Everything has consciousness. Everything can be tuned into. It's not just the animals or plants or things of nature that are living and alive. Literally anything can be tuned into, and you can sense the emotions and the energy of that thing. I know that CIA was hiring people or looking in high schools for people who had this ability or this more predisposition to sense into inanimate objects and machines. And then they hired them as people who would go in and diagnose military equipment intuitively, and they would be spot on, and it would save a mechanic from having to tinker around for a longer time. So this is very possible. Anything can be tuned into. A car, a truck. I was working on my truck the other day, and I fixed something. I cleaned up the engine bay pretty nice, and I got a message or a download from the truck or from somewhere that it was feeling happier. Like oftentimes we say, my car is struggling, or my car is feeling beat up, or whatever, but this, just as a joke, but this actually has true meaning. These things have emotion and feeling. And so once I cleaned up my engine bay, there was like dirt and oil all over it just from, being a car. I cleaned it up real nice, and the truck was happier. I could feel it. People might think we're crazy because we're like talking to our car or talking to a house, an inanimate object. But it's true because we know it's true. We know it's real. And maybe they just haven't experienced it for themselves yet. And we wish that for those people who haven't experienced it, because it's wonderful to be able to communicate with everything and sense into it. And just yesterday, actually, I did a big cleanup on the garage in the house. It was kind of messy. There was stuff lying around on the floor, and it needed sweeping and stuff needed organizing. So I spent a good, few hours doing that. And I could feel that the house, and the garage specifically, the house itself was struggling because of that area being bogged down. The house's consciousness, it was kind of weighing heavy. And so once I had tidied that area up, the house, it just felt happier. I think it talked to me and it sent me a message that, the house, or I feel happier. And, thank you. So you can communicate with your house. It's such a beautiful thing. You can communicate with your car or a machine or an instrument. Everything has its own consciousness because the energy, the life force energy, the universal energy, it's in everything because everything is created by that energy, and that energy has consciousness. So naturally everything will have consciousness. I remember hearing about a past life regression where someone went back to a past life, or maybe they tapped into another soul's experience or a lesser evolved consciousness experience. And they were a rock. They were a big, like, boulder rock, and they were watching a house burn down or something, and they looked down and they just saw themselves as a rock. Even, stones have consciousness. Crystals, like, healing crystals, they themselves have consciousness too. And when we can start to connect with this stuff, it's just so beautiful and so beneficial. Because we can sense, when the house needs help, or when the car is struggling with something, or even the business. Yeah, I mentioned this earlier in the video, a business. Because you've created it, or because you're working for a business, it's a conscious entity, a conscious being, because it's been created with life force energy. And the business, right? It does well, or it's struggling, or it's feeling down, or things are moving too fast for it. It in itself is conscious, and you can talk to it. We just have to open up. We have to open up our mind to this possibility that we can talk to stuff. People might think you're crazy, but if you know it's true, then it doesn't matter, because it's such a nice thing to do. You can talk to anything. You can talk to furniture. And it does sound crazy. But because, the spiritual community is the minority in this society, then, that just leads itself to being labeled as crazy or different. But if we know this stuff is true, then it's fine. We do what's true to us and what's right to us. So we can literally communicate with anything, because everything has consciousness. The house, the car, the business, the shed, the sofa, whatever it is. And you might find that each different thing has a different personality. Like this house that I'm in right now, I can feel its energy. It feels different than my car or my truck. They have different personalities and different kind of consciousnesses and energies. And you can sense into this and really get to know this and get good at this kind of communication with these more non-living entities, or non-alive. It's just a beautiful thing.